As the nation grapples with a deadly overdose crisis, Narcan has been gaining a lot of attention as a life-saving overdose drug.
Fentanyl is now a leading cause of death of Americans under the age of 50. The CDC says nearly 70% of overdoses are related to the powerful synthetic opioid that's often hidden in recreational drugs. But what if there's a way to tell? CBS 12's Katie Benty joins us live with details on how fentanyl testing strips could be the next resource for Floridians. Katie.
That's right, guys. This is what we're talking about here. It is a rapid response fentanyl testing strip, and it comes just like this. Basically, what you do is whatever drug you're looking to test, you dilute it in water, and then you dip this little strip inside for at least 15 seconds. And once it dries, you'll be able to tell based on how many lines pop up whether the drug is clean or contains fentanyl. Now, right now, these drug testing strips are considered drug paraphernalia here in Florida, but new legislation is aiming to change that. Mother and leader of Southeast Florida recovery advocates, Maureen Keelian, says she's frustrated watching the battle continue over fentanyl testing strips.
You lost that war on drugs already. You lost it, okay? So now you're choosing whether they can live or die, okay? And honestly, as a mother, you have no right to decide that for anybody's loved one.
Her son is currently in recovery after almost dying of a drug overdose.
We need to do anything to save a life at this point because this is harm reduction.
In Florida, fentanyl testing strips are considered drug paraphernalia, with the idea if you're testing something, you must have something illegal to test.
You're giving people this life-saving tool, but you're essentially promoting or encouraging, condoning drug use. At its surface, I can see how they can come to that conclusion, but people use drugs.
An idea that hadn't budged until in more recent weeks, when the House and Senate approved a bill that changes the definition of drug paraphernalia to exclude fentanyl testing products. It's something Rebel Recovery Program Director Austin Wright says would help those who aren't necessarily addicts, but use them more recreationally.
There's a lot of just everyday people that carry about their careers and their families that use drugs occasionally.
Which is also the group he says has the highest risk of overdosing.
Because they don't have a tolerance, the amount of fentanyl that would be like a little effect on somebody who's using fentanyl every day might kill them, right? Having the ability to test, they can make more informed decisions.
Now, right now, these testing strips are available in at least 35 states. And if Governor Ron DeSantis signs the bill to decriminalize them, that'll be one more state on the list.
Following a string of school threats across the nation, Florida now taking steps to intervene before a tragedy occurs.
It's an improvement to a system put in place after the Parkland school shooting to help experts keep an eye on students showing concerning behaviors or showing an interest in hate-filled topics or violence.
Yeah, CBS 12's Lily Ortiz joins us in the studio tonight to tell us how it works.
When a serious incident or behavior involving a student occurs, a trained school threat assessment team is required by law to step in and prepare a written report. But under the new guidelines, they'll use an online portal. The goal is to make sure a student who might turn to violence is identified early on and get the help and intervention they need well before they act. Keeping track of dangerous students. It's a goal of a Florida panel created after the Parkland massacre to make recommendations to improve safety in schools. Max Schachter's 14-year-old son, Alex, was one of the 17 killed in 2018.
Law enforcement was at the Parkland murderer's house over 40 times, but the school didn't know what was happening outside the school.
Schools will soon be able to keep better track of students showing concerning behavior or possible planning violence. The idea of creating an online portal for these individual students was just approved by the MSD Public Safety Commission, to which Schachter is a member. Schachter says a team of law enforcement, school leaders, and mental health professionals will share things like warning signs and then coordinate intervention and services to help get these students off the path of violence.
This is only for individuals that, are talking about, committing suicide, or individuals that are posting like the Parkland murderer was, that he was mutilating, animals and posting pictures of weapons online.
This so-called threat assessment team is a system already put in place after Parkland, a guide developed by the U.S. Secret Service on how to identify and prevent school violence. Soon, they'll keep their findings in an online portal in case a student moves or transfers to another school.
So all those individuals come together and they're sharing information about what's happening in that individual's life. How are they behaving in school? What's their academic performance?
The governor signed the law so we would receive additional funding. The information stored in the portal would be private.
Only those team members are looking at this information and not the public. Really improves on what we've already done, expands it, makes it better.
And as part of this new measure, additional training will be required for these team members, and it could be up and running as early as January.
A crackdown on criminal activity. Drugs, prostitution, and violence have been ongoing issues in the north end of West Palm Beach. But tonight, guns, drugs, and prostitutes are off the streets. The West Palm Beach Police Department announcing a major bust in the Northwood area. CBS 12's Lena Salzbank joins us with what we know.
The Northwood Funeral Home has been a staple in the community for over 70 years. But when Paul Nelson and his family took over ownership last year, they quickly realized crime was a problem.
Well, my first impression when we pulled up to look at this funeral home as an option was I told my wife, no, I can't do this area. But I just saw all the street life, the prostitution. It was so thick and heavy.
But city leaders say that ends today after 29 people were arrested.
This is a bad thing that's been happening in our neighborhood, and now we're coming together. And it's this partnership with the people that live here that's going to make us successful.
At least 7 guns, drugs, and prostitutes were taken off the streets. West Palm Beach Police Chief Frank Adderley says the investigation began just after Christmas in 2021, when residents started complaining about the crime in the area. This home behind me was the nerve center for organized crime here in the area, and according to police, that crime then spilled out into the streets here in the Northwood section of the city. 16 of those arrested today are facing racketeering charges, which means if convicted, they could face up to 60 years behind bars. State Attorney Dave Ehrenberg noting at Tuesday's press conference that many of the suspects were selling fentanyl, a deadly opioid that has led to many overdose deaths here and across the state.
It is fitting that we are here on National Fentanyl Awareness Day. This is an important day where we are here to confront the #1 drug crisis that this country has ever faced.
This is the second major organized crime sweep in the area in the last 3 years. Now police say they are focused on preventing the next group of criminals from coming into the neighborhood.